every time I was of service, the stuff that was coming in was just mind-blowing, incredible. And yeah, so I didn't care about the pushback. I was like, whatever. My attitude was, if people doubted it or were skeptics or disbelieved, I would be like, here's the scientific fact of why it's real. I had all my scientific evidence to back up what I was doing.
You are now tuning in to the Going North podcast with your host, best-selling author and professional speaker and member of the John Maxwell team, Dominic Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, we're going to hear the voice of a different author sharing their gifts, stories, and expertise to help you charge forward in life. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, where we bring you some extraordinary humans from around the globe, it's the 2-year anniversary of the podcast, and we got a superstar on the Hizzy House, a random media maven. Well, I wouldn't say random media maven, but we got one heck of a guest for you. This wonderful lady right here is a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual teacher, ascension guide, multidimensional channel, initiative, an animal communicator. And on top of that, she's also an energy healer and a light worker, as well as a visionary and luminary. Try saying all those things 7 times fast. And she assists others who awaken their alignment with the true divine source which exists within each and every being, so that all beings can live their best life ever. That's right, the BLE, y'all. So if you want your BLE, you definitely want to listen to this wonderful lady right here. And for over 20 years, this wonderful lady right here, she's transformed the lives of thousands of humans and animals via her channeled ascension guidance, intuition, sacred energy healing, and animal communication and telepathy. She provides training and support, as well as sacred energy healing, dormant DNA activation, as well as sacred key code and star code making activations for humans and animals. So for those who love the Sacred Stories media, guests, you're definitely going to love this wonderful lady right here. It's the one, the only LAS, Miss Lori Ann Spagna. How are you today, ma'am?
I am awesome, Dom. Thank you for having me, and happy 2-year anniversary.
Oh, yeah, it's year 2. I'd say it's a twin, but it's not exactly a twin, but hey, it's all good.
Well, congratulations. That's a big milestone, and I'm honored to be part of the show today to celebrate in the 2-year anniversary. So yay.
Oh, yeah, and it's great to have you too. Great to have you too.
Thank
Especially since you've done so much over the years and still alive and kicking.
you. I hope so. Yeah, because for me, I'm just getting started in a way. Like, yes, I've been doing it for a long time, and I feel like I'm just getting started with the good stuff. So, yeah.
Ah, the good stuff. So how good we talking there? Good with 3 O's, 10 O's, 15 O's?
I think it's good beyond measure.
Ah.
I feel like that's what's ahead of all of us, for all of humanity. We don't even, I don't think we realize how good it's going to get for us. I don't think we currently have, the bulk of humanity does not currently realize how good it's going to get. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but we're just coming out of a huge period of eons of being unconscious and asleep, not realizing what's going on. We're just barely starting to wake up. So it's like coming out of a long slumber for humanity, and we're just starting. We don't even realize, and as we come out of that slumber, Wow, there's just so much good in store for us as a whole human species, as a whole Earth population. Oh my God, there's just so much good stuff. So,
Oh, yeah, you're definitely right about the good stuff indeed.
yeah.
Like that you said, it was beyond measure, so that means if you go to Home Depot and Lowe's, all the measuring sticks in there won't account for all the good that's going to happen.
Yes, I love that. Yes. I mean, what is infinity? What is the infinite? It's infinite. We could get all the measuring sticks that exist on planet Earth and we still couldn't measure how good it's going to get.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So good, gonna need butter too. And it's
Yeah.
speaking of butter, you've been putting metaphorical butter on bread for all these years and have a boatload of skills and abilities. So, how did this all come about? Because I did a little digging and heard a bit about your story. I mean, you got like so much content. This could take me like 20 years to get through all of it. But like, who is the wonderful Lori, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, I think the storyline, my storyline is out of college, I graduated, I went into corporate America and I got in what I call, the rat race. I feel like I was a slave. I was a good slave. I worked in corporate America and I was miserable. But it was like 12, 15 hours a day and I'd collect my paycheck. And during those 20 years, because I was so miserable, I started using all kinds of behavioral tactics to sort of survive. So out of college, none of these things were going on in my life. But in those 20 years, I started smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, built up to that. I became a drinker over time of 6 beers a day, every day, pretty much. I started spending excessively until I built up to basically $150,000 in bad debt. You know, I, I put so much weight on my body. I was about 65 pounds overweight. My thyroid was completely off. So, I was drinking like 2 pots of coffee a day, right? And I had a hypothyroid, so I couldn't get through the day without the coffee. And then at night I'd be drinking the beer, but my hair was falling out. Like I said, I was really overweight. I was going to see doctors for help and they were pumping me up with massive, massive doses of pharmaceutical drugs. Like you could line up the drugs across, the countertop in the bathroom. So all of this came to a head really when my brother died. He died of a drug overdose, and there was definitely a lot of addiction in my family. And when he died, what happened was I started, not immediately, but after like sort of the dust settled, after the funeral was done and all of that, I started getting messages from him. And initially I thought I was crazy, because like I didn't have any conscious connection with being psychic or any of those kinds of gifts prior to that in a conscious way, even though I was always super sensitive and I was always what I would have called really perceptive, but I just thought everybody kind of had that. Anyway, he started giving me messages, and the message was basically like, Lori, look at the journey you're on. It's not that different from my journey, even though you're not using really bad drugs. You need to change your ways, and there's something better for you, but you've got to change everything you're doing. So that was kind of where it started. But just to sort of sum up my storyline, I took that message. Like at first I was just testing it, Dom. I was like, if this is really my brother, like, can you give me this kind of a sign? Or I don't know if I'm crazy, if I'm really hearing or seeing, like I would do that. And it just kept reinforcing it over and over and over again. So after that, I started paying attention. And what ended up happening because of that was that I quit my 6-figure job in the rat race, where, like I said, I used to call myself a good slave because it was crazy, crazy hours, miserable work, the whole thing. I quit my job and I ended up becoming a dog trainer because that was my passion, was to help animals. I wanted to be of service to animals. And as that started, I would hear the animals. Then I started hearing the animals and I would hear them say, listen to me and I'll teach you. So while I was learning to train dogs, and I was hired by a guy who spent 20 years training service animals for the United States military. So when he was done working for the military, he started a business and he hired me, and I'd have to work with the dogs. And under his tutelage, I would hear the dogs, right? So I started listening to them, and they started teaching me about energy and telepathy, and they're humans and how they're here to help humans. So from there, that's where it all kicked off. I can tell you some more about the story, but that's where it started. So maybe I should pause and take a breath, because I could go on, but that's where it started.
Oh yeah, the Lori train can go on. Choo choo. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes, indeed. But yeah, glad you made it out of that quote unquote rat race and actually got into your passion. Was able to put down the darn cigs and the beer and the
Yeah.
coffee addiction.
I mean, that's a really big piece of the story that I sometimes forget to, I leave it out, because the moment I quit my 6-figure job and I started working with the dogs, I started to get happy. So the moment I started to get happy, I immediately started, the alcohol went away almost overnight. Like I just stopped drinking because I started getting happy. And then with a lot of what the dogs were saying was like, be still, sit still, be quiet, listen, breathe. And so as I was doing that, I would breathe, and the cigarettes started to go away. Anyway, within 2 years of taking the dog training job, within 2 years of that, what happened was I ended up moving to Maui after a year because I got happy and I knew I was going to heal my body and heal my life. That's what I was thinking. And I really did want to find God. Like I knew that there was a spiritual something beyond my physical world because of, my brother and because of the animals, what they were teaching me. So I moved to Maui, and within 2 years of quitting that job in corporate America, within 2 years, all of the alcohol was out of my life. I haven't drank at all. And not because I can't or don't want, I just don't want to. I don't need it. I don't desire it in any way. I don't need it for my happiness. So there's no alcohol in my life anymore. There's no cigarettes. Within 2 years, that was gone completely. Within 2 years, the 6-figure debt was gone, eliminated. Within 2 years, 65 pounds of body weight was dropped. I dropped that weight. Within 2 years, all of the pharmaceutical drugs were completely gone. I have not used any form of over-the-counter or pharmaceutical drug now it's almost well over 15 years. And nor has my dog, by the way, except once when she got bitten by a rattlesnake. And all of that stuff's out of my life. The thyroid was completely rebalanced. My body is totally healthy. So yeah, I mean, I consider that because I got right with my true path, and I got aligned with my true service and mission, and I got happy.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right. You became diplomat of Maui too, didn't you?
Well, Maui had tons of challenges while I was there. So I lived there for 2 years. And during that time, I did lose everything. I mean, I lost everything. I lost everything, but I started new. So I was starting my new business, basically. First, it was as a dog trainer. Then it became as an animal communicator. Then I started adding in all the healing gifts too, because I became a healer. Like I got my Reiki master, and I started getting trained in a lot of energy healing techniques. I was practicing with a true master healer who he himself had 7 near-death experiences at that time, many of them documented. In one case, he had literally been found in the morgue, inside of a freezer, banging on the freezer to let him out. So I was studying with him, and he was teaching me about how to still the body to experience death without dying. And that process of learning from him taught me how to, yes, go into the afterlife, so to speak, and die without dying, or die what he calls a little death. And so these kinds of near-death experiences that I was having while living in Maui, they weren't documented in a hospital, but they were definitely allowed me to go into other realms of existence. And I'm not talking about what we call astral travel, where you're still very much in your body, but your consciousness leaves your body. I'm talking about what he called, and what I call a little death, where you can literally merge with the non-physical realm and leave the body as if you are not in the body at all. The body basically dissolves in a sense, because it's only a part of the physical world. So I had that kind of experience multiple times while I was living in Maui. And that really emphasized all the healing gifts. And then the other kicker, the really big kicker, what happened while I was in Maui, which kind of transformed everything, was that I lived on a golf course. And in the evenings, in Maui at that time, this was, somewhere, I don't know, about 15 years ago almost, in Maui at that, maybe less than that, 12 years ago, I don't know. Anyway, so at that time, everything would close at 9 p.m. And there was nothing to do after 9 p.m., really, not really, unless you go to bars, and I didn't go to bars. So I would sit on my back patio overlooking the golf course and look up at the stars, and I would meditate. And there was one night, there was definitely an extraterrestrial starship in the sky. And there were a lot of them over Maui at that time anyway. It was kind of known that they were easy to spot. And I made a connection with this ship. And I knew, I had worked for cable television companies in corporate America for quite a long time. So I knew what a satellite was. It wasn't a satellite, right? This ship was responding to me when I would talk to it. And back then, I did not know anything about extraterrestrial life or what I call star family races. I didn't know anything about it. I was very uneducated about it, but I do remember thinking that it was benevolent. I do remember thinking like, oh, they're here to help us. And that may or may not have been true, but in my case, it was true. So what I kind of said to the ship with my mind was, if there's anything I can do, let me know. Like if I can be of service, because I was just clueless, right, Dom? I was so clueless. I didn't know what I was dealing with. But as it turns out, I ended up having an abduction experience. So I call it more like a contactee or induction experience, because it was completely benevolent. So I was telepathically received, and I was transported onto that ship. And it turns out that it was what I call my star family from the stars. So while on that ship, I got what I now call activations that really took me just to the whole other level. And that's what changed everything. Ultimately, those 2 years in Maui were so radical. They changed everything. And after that, nothing was ever the same. So that's my story. That's where everything I do originated from. That storyline, those experiences that I just explained.
So was it painful with the whole deaths sort of thing? Or just leaving your body like that?
Well, I mean, I love that you just asked that, but no, it wasn't. So what happened was, I mean, like I said, there were a number of experiences, and it was a buildup. But actually, these other realms are so blissful and euphoric that when I was in those states, I didn't actually want to come back, because I was just so blissful. I was so happy. I was like, who cares? And then I'd have connection with my own angels and the guides that I was working with in the non-physical realm. And they would be like, but you have to go back because you have your dogs. And I'd be like, who cares? They're fine. Everything will be fine. And then they'd say, yeah, but your family's there. You have to go back. And I'd be like, who cares? They're fine. This is so good. I just want to be here. Everything's fine. And they'd say, but you have a lot more work to do. You're really not done. And I'd be like, well, who cares? I just want to be here. So fine. And they'd be like, no, you have to go back. There's even if you left now, you'd have to go back. And I'd be like, well, I don't want to have to go back, so I guess I'll go back. And that's what happened. But really, in a couple of the times I was with my teacher, and he knew so much about how to follow energy and call me back in. So like one of the most profound times was when he was with me watching, and I was in a room full of people. And so he basically, I remember at one point, like I was in this non-physical world, like I just want to be here. Who cares? Everything's so great. I'm so happy. This is where I want to be. And I remember said, he was over me, saying, nope, it's time now. And he counted his fingers, like he counted 1, 2, 3, snapped his fingers, called all my consciousness back into my body. So I immediately, like what I would say, popped back into my body. And then everyone in the room was just touching me because the energy was so incredibly blissfully, euphorically intense that if they just touched me with one finger, they would all break out in hysterical laughter. And we were all, for an hour after that, all of us in these like fetal positions almost in the room, hysterically laughing. Yeah, because it's so blissful. It's so euphoric that's what I took back into my physical body when I came back in. And that's what they all were able to receive as well with just one finger touch. So no pain, no pain. But you understand, I want to clarify this too, because since a lot of this was initially started by my brothers, basically his crossing was a suicide in a sense. I mean, you wouldn't know it. It was a drug overdose, but I would call it a suicide because of my communication with him in the afterlife, his, connecting with him in the afterlife. He made it very clear that his so-called suicide was not into euphoria. Like he was stuck in what religion would call purgatory. He was stuck in what he called, and I would call, a fourth dimensional realm. And his connection with me, while it was a beautiful connection designed to help me wake up, I also was going to help him to get out of that realm. So through his service to me and my connection with him, I was going to help him find his way to the higher realms. And that's where I was connecting with in the afterlife when I had my own near-death experience, because it was not a suicide. So I hope this is making sense. Suicide does not get you to that bliss state. He had to really be of service to me so that he could find his way to those higher realms of happiness and bliss. Suicide doesn't get you there. Overdose does not get you there. Drug overdose, alcoholic addiction overdose does not get you there. I hope that makes sense. It's an important distinction to make.
Oh, glad you made that distinction.
Yeah.
So darn good that you mentioned that, because it's like, if you're, God forbid, if anyone has any suicidal thoughts listening to this, hopefully you'll change that idea immediately.
Yeah, it can absolutely be changed. What I want to say too, as a healer, as an intuitive, as someone who has had a lot of really wonderful connections with the non-physical realms, you can heal all of that. Heal is the word to say transform. You can shift that. You can change that while you're alive in the physical body, because you're meant to. And then you can live a happy, fulfilling, rewarding life for as long as you're meant to live, as long as you choose to live. Happy, fulfilling, rewarding life is possible for all of us. And suicide is never an answer, never a solution. That's one thing I know for sure. In fact, I'll share this very, very private, personal story that I got from my brother many years later. In fact, maybe as many as 10 years later or 12 years later, after he crossed over, I remember I was actually in a yoga class, and it was at the very end of yoga when they have you go into like samadhi. If you're familiar with yoga, it's where you're just, you get to be just laying there in a very kind of, blissy type of state. And I was in that blissy state, and my brother came to me because I had been asking, like, why haven't I heard from my brother in a long time? What's gone on with him? And he came to me, and during that time, he sort of explained to me or showed to me his death experience from his perspective. And he also explained to me that he came back temporarily in the body of a woman who was going to choose abortion. And he wanted to learn from her how to respect and honor life, because this woman was very religious, and all of her views were kind of like anti-abortion. But because she was so young and she had to deal with this was part of her life mission, to work through her issue with abortion, and that ultimately she was going to choose abortion. He chose to be the unborn embryo, the consciousness in her body, so that he could learn from her about how to respect life, because she really respected life. It was an amazing story. So he, as the aborted, unborn, it was really an embryo. And he told me, not all, many aborted baby embryos there's never a soul in there, even because they might not choose to have that. But in this case, he chose it so he could learn from her. Isn't that fascinating?
Huh, definitely is. Because in a way, since you're in that, I guess since you're inside of someone like that, and a lot of their emotions and
Yes.
nutritional choices go feeding towards the embryo, which eventually becomes a baby and a grown adult eventually, it's kind of an interesting way to learn.
Yes, it's fascinating. Like, I would never have known that. In fact, when I was in college, I remember, like, I worked as a student peer counselor on campus. Like, we had a sexuality clinic on campus, and I did counseling for people, and I did student peer counseling even for people, who, pregnancies, and some of the women were choosing, to terminate their pregnancy. And I would never have known that, because what I was trained in back then in college was that in the first trimester, there's no gray matter in the brain, even for a so-called embryo to have consciousness. So anyway, I wouldn't have known that myself. That's all I'm saying. I would never have known that.
Yeah, definitely. Because when you go inside of a cave, no one's gonna know.
Yeah, no, we don't know this stuff. We don't know this stuff. In fact, now I've had so many conversations with unborn babies, babies, and sometimes they're not in the body. That sometimes unborn babies choose to be with the parents outside of the body until the time of birth. It doesn't mean there's not a soul. It just means the soul's there, but not in the body. It's up to the life that's associated with the birth. But it depends on the individual soul, how they're choosing to go through the experience. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. And heck, that even brings the questions like, is there an opportunity where the soul be like, hey, all right, they're trying to not let me come out here, so I'm going to jump ship while I can. Is there ever that moment that has ever happened before that you know of?
Well, yeah, that can happen, like, for example, with a miscarriage. But in that case, it's usually because the souls involved, that includes the parents, either have some kind of learning or growth or evolution to do. And so they kind of pre-agree, which we call that like some kind of contract or agreement on the soul level, so that they can learn or grow. But a lot of times, if it's parents who want to have a baby, and there's a miscarriage involved, it's usually the same soul. So not always, but very often, the soul of the child who was miscarried is the same soul that will get born at a later date. So they go through this experience, they learn, they grow, they heal, they evolve, and then the parents will try again later, and the same soul comes through as the baby who does ultimately get born. So all souls grow and evolve through the experience of the miscarriage in that kind of a case. So yeah, they do. They might say, oh, I'm going to pop out before I can be born because it's not the right timing yet. And there's going to be learning that happens and soul growth and evolution. And then I'll be back when the timing is right. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, quarters and nickels.
Yeah, quarters and nickels. But I mean, I think that's a beautiful story to understand that, because unborn children, unborn babies also have so much wisdom. They have so much wisdom for their humans, their parents, and they're helping their parents too from even, the unborn state.
Especially when that kick appears, right?
Yeah, well, when the kick appears, it still doesn't necessarily mean that the soul is in the body. It doesn't mean that the baby's soulless. It just means sometimes the soul is choosing to go through it, outside. But then sometimes it is this. It depends on what that soul chooses. I think I said that already, because sometimes the soul wants to go through it from inside, and sometimes the soul wants to go through it from outside. But they're always by their parents. They're always with their parents, because they're already bonded. There's love there, soul connections. That's another form of soulmate, right? Mommies know that. Mommies
Oh,
know that about their babies. It's my soulmate. This baby's my soulmate. And it's true.
oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Even when mom becomes 90 and the child becomes 50, they still know.
Yeah, it's true. That's just soul families, soul connections. Absolutely. And for the dad too, of course, for the daddy too. And the truth is, the interesting thing is, it's true for our animal companions as well. So even though we're not of the same physical bodies with our animal companions, they're soulmates too. And they also, just like we might choose our animal, they choose us as well. And the deeper the bond between the human and the animal, like when an animal is your, we say your pet, for, real animal lovers, they're not just our pet, they're our family members, and we are soulmates with them too. That might not be as true always for animals who kind of, if they come into a family and they don't make a real bond and the animal sort of gets rehomed, it's sometimes in those cases, there's just a lesson to be learned about responsibility or whatever it is that might be unique to that family member or that coupling. But still, there's always a soul connection, even if it's not as deep, like a deep soulmate, even with animals and people. Same is true. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you an animal lover, Dom?
Working on it.
Well, not everybody's an animal lover, but it definitely helps if you understand that it really is true that animals are sentient beings. They are conscious. In fact, in many ways, depending on the animal, they are sometimes more conscious than we are, because they're using their right brain in ways that most humans have not developed yet. And they're using their heart brain. They have a heart brain, just like we have a heart brain. There literally is, this is scientific fact, there's brain matter in the heart. That's true for all living beings. So animals, in some cases, are using more brain matter in the heart, and in some cases are using more of the heart muscle with consciousness than we are in some cases, which is why they're so loving and forgiving. They're also using more of their gut brain. So we also know scientifically that there is brain matter in the gut. That's why when you hear a human who goes, yeah, my gut, I just know it in my gut, they're using their gut brain. Well, animals do that too. So this is why I say in some cases, some animals are even more conscious than some humans, because they're using more of their consciousness than some humans are.
Oh, yeah, that I can definitely believe.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I've found a correlation in my work and in my life that when humans think that animals are unconscious, it usually means that human is less conscious than most animals. It's kind of funny. It's a kind of interesting correlation. The more a human thinks an animal is unconscious, in general, the less conscious that human is.
Maybe it's because animals don't have to learn English, at least most of them.
But you know what's funny? Animals actually do learn English. The more the human around them speaks English, the more English they learn, because they just learn it telepathically. Like, for example, if a human who shares, you share a house with an animal, and the human's like, oh, I got to get my keys. And every time they're running around the house looking for their keys, and they're saying the word keys, and their mind has an image, a mental image in it, like, oh, where's my keys? The animal is totally picking up on that. So they're learning the word key, just telepathically, mentally. And yes, verbally, if the human says it out loud. And that's just one example. I mean, it happens it's with everything. Like, if the human comes home and they're like, what am I going to have for dinner? Oh, I'm hungry. What am I going to have for dinner? They're thinking it. They're feeling it. The animals in the house, animals learning the word dinner, hungry. They're making the connection. They know it. They learn the word. So they're totally, not only are they telepathic, but they're empathic, which means that they're picking up on the energy of their house. And yes, they're learning the words too. And even if the human isn't speaking English, let's say it's a French home or a German home, the animal's learning those languages, if that's the language that's spoken in the house. Fascinating, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely not left.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So what brought you back to the US of A after gaining all the wonderful experiences in Maui that transformed you?
Well, what happened in Maui was after the 2 years while I was healing there, and like after I had that induction experience, stuff just got so wacky for me, because in a way, I couldn't really function there, but at the same time, I was functioning like very normally, like I could still do everyday things, but I was alone for those 2 years. And through the healing journey, what happened was after I left the mainland, my then husband, he kind of he couldn't handle me getting happy. So he divorced me, and I was in the Maui for the 2 years healing, but I was working through all that stuff. So at the end of the 2 years, my dog at that time, her name was Kenya, she ended up passing away. And that about broke me. That was like the end of it. Like after that, I was heartbroken. And
Oh,
even though I went through such a healing time and such a transformational time, after that, I was like, I couldn't stay in Maui anymore. And I knew that it was time for me to come home. Like, I knew that I had done whatever I needed to do while I was in Maui. I knew, even from the induction experience, that I was meant to come back and start sharing all of that with others. And that everything was going to transform even further in terms of my work, my service, and my mission on planet Earth. So after the 2 years, I packed up, I came back, and I started doing less work with animals and a lot more work with humans. So yeah, that's what got me back, was like after her death, I was just done. So I came back, I moved back to Los Angeles, and I started doing work like a lot more spiritual, metaphysical work. I started teaching things like manifesting. I was doing a lot more of the work that I do now, some of it with the DNA in humans, because that's a whole other topic. I was teaching about manifestation and working with the non-physical realm. I was teaching I was teaching classes on animal communication more. I was getting into that. I was teaching psychic development classes, all that kind of esoteric stuff, more of that.
And what gave you the confidence to keep going when you first started going somewhat on the speaking circuit? Because I'm pretty sure you had some kind of pushback with some of the topics that you cover.
You know, I did have pushback, but I never really cared about that because, first of all, if for people who are into the whole past lives thing, which I get that a lot of people aren't and they don't really understand how it works, but for me, I am so certain that I've been doing this for eons of time that I didn't even care about pushback. The pushback came from my family. You know, that was the irony. It was like other people, they were into it, but my family of origin, they were the toughest ones. So I was just like, and my ex-husband, he was the biggest resistance, and we divorced. So what did I care? I was like, I was on purpose. I was doing what I was here to do. And I loved it. And I loved what I was offering. And I knew it was real because of the results that people and animals were having. And just the incredible kinds of miracles. I mean, what I would call miracles that people and animals were having, incredible healings, and the kinds of validation that I was getting from the people when I would, translate what the animals were giving me. And then just the incredible stuff that was coming from the non-physical realm in terms of being of service. Like every time I was of service, the stuff that was coming in was just mind-blowing, incredible. And yeah, so I didn't care about the pushback. I was like, whatever. My attitude was, if people doubted it or were skeptics or disbelieved, I would be like, here's the scientific fact of why it's real. I had all my scientific evidence to back up what I was doing. And I was more like, if you don't know it's real, that's up to you to learn the facts. Because the facts are this stuff is real. And it behooves us on planet Earth to start realizing how real it is. Because from my perspective, the people who don't think it's real, who are the skeptics or the doubters or the disbelievers, those are the same people who have massive problems with sickness and illness. Those are the same people who are miserable and unhappy in their jobs. Those are the same people who are having major relationship problems. Those are the same people who generally are having financial challenges. Those are the same people who are going through divorces and separation. Those are the same people who are experiencing the most amount of unhappiness in their lives. But the people who know it's real and who are working with this, those are the people who are having more and more happiness in their life. Those are the people, I should say, we are the people who are having incredible, miraculous healings with things. We're transforming our experiences to be so fulfilling and rewarding on planet Earth. We're the people who are stepping into our true missions. We're the people who are having incredible abundance and wealth, but not by an old standard like living in mansions. More like we're living in new ways that are our own form of abundance, which is like, hey, today I get to go and I'm going to stay in a 5-star hotel this week because this week I want to do it and I can. And or maybe next week I'll just be, hanging low, sitting in a Starbucks coffee house, but I'm living my style of abundance, whatever that is to me. Like the ones who are into this, that's what we're doing. We're living in a whole new way. And to me, that's what I call 5D. It's a whole new way of experiencing because we're working with the non-physical realms of consciousness. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question on pushback. I don't know. Maybe I elaborated more than I needed to, but there it is.
Oh, amen. Need to pull out the organ now. Lori's preaching, y'all. Lori's
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to sound like a preacher, but I know I have been a preacher in other lifetimes. So sometimes it comes out. That archetypical pattern in me does come out.
Don't worry, folks. The offering plate is in the show notes. Trust me.
The offering plate. Yeah. Well, that's like what we call a tithe. They can tithe. They can tithe you. They can make a donation to you or to me for the service.
That's right. The service you provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So of course 3D, we all know about that. Draw a 3D box. Then 4D, it's like okay, maybe fourth wall and like a series of something. But 5D, mind going deeper into what exactly is 5D? So
Yeah, let's talk about that. So to me, when I describe 3D, I'm talking about the physical world that we have existed in. So that's a third dimensional reality. And that physical world is basically made up of one dimension of sound, at one dimension of light and gradients of light, which includes colors and all the ranges of color that we can see. And then one dimension of space, which is height, width, and depth. That's its own dimension. And that also includes time in a sense, even though time is not a dimension, it's a space of its own. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, there's space, right? So that's the third dimensional reality: sound, light, and space. Now, when we get into fourth dimensional reality, which actually, in a sense, time is there because time is a construct, it's a belief, it's a perspective. How much time do you have? What is 24 hours? It's not a constant. Fourth dimension is those things that are non-physical constructs, beliefs, thoughts, emotions, mental energy. You could also include in the fourth dimension things like ghosts and non-physical things that still affect and interact with us in the physical world. Spirits, all forms of energy, entities, that whole range, that's non-physical. It's real. I mean, emotion is real, but you can't really see it. But if someone in a body has an extreme emotion, you're going to see them expressing it, like extreme anger or passion or excitement or whatever. Okay, so all that stuff is a fourth dimensional realm. Now, when we get into 5D, what we're talking about is a frequency of consciousness where people have woken up to the fact that we are so much more than 3D. And the fifth dimensional realm, we've moved through or somehow passed through and have worked with and still continue to work with this non-physical realm in a way that's more conscious. So for example, if you think about everyday people who are unconscious, they're driving down the road and they get angry and then they start having road rage. They're not working with the fourth dimensional realm in a conscious way. They're just being angry and having road rage. But a fifth dimensional person, maybe they're driving down the road and they're suddenly aware, like, oh, wow, look at that person's having some road rage. And if they were unconscious, they might get angry back and give the finger back or something like that. But instead they say, you know what, I'm going to breathe and I'm going to choose peace because I don't want to be angry and have road rage. And I know that in a moment, this energy will pass if I can breathe and be peaceful and harmonious on the road, and I'll be safer. I choose to be more conscious. And I rise my energy to a higher frequency of peace because I know in the fifth dimensional reality, my energy, vibration, and signature will match and be of peace. And then in a moment, it's passed and they have maintained their peace. But the person in 3D has driven off in road rage, and 3 miles down the road, they either got a ticket or they got pulled over first, or they had an accident, or someone else is cursing them out because they're having a three-dimensional reality. But the fifth dimensional reality person has chosen peace. And 5 minutes later, what's happened to them is they may be pulled off and, oh my God, there's this wonderful, exciting adventure on the side of the road. Someone's having a party and they just got invited to it, or something wonderful happened to them that's adding more joy or more peace or more wonderfulness. Or maybe when they pulled over into the parking lot where they're at their end destination, they open the door and, oh my God, there's a $20 bill. And they're like, wow, that's so exciting. Because they're in a fifth dimensional reality that's based in peace, love, joy, happiness, and fulfillment. And because they made a conscious choice not to be angry, and they rose above it, and they just embodied peace, now their road, their journey took them down a whole other path that gave them a whole different kind of experience. So in this example, they open the car. Oh my God, they find a $20 bill. And then somebody calls them when they get out their door. Hey, you want to go to this party tonight? We're having such a good time. Then they go over to that party. They're so excited. They make some new friends. And then, oh my God, they just met their dream partner at the party. Okay, this is 5D. You're in the same reality, but not really. You're having a whole different kind of experience because they're more conscious about how energy works and the choices that they choose in the non-physical that now change their reality in the physical. That's 5D. Make sense?
Oh, yeah. With pennies and dimes even.
Yeah. And quarters and 50-cent pieces and silver dollars.
Yes, all righty.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, Pun City. Yes, indeed.
So, and here's the thing I want to just say too, Dom, that is just so cool, is that this fifth dimensional reality is just another starting point. So all of humanity now is starting, just barely starting to wake up to this fifth dimensional reality. We're just beginning to realize about this fourth dimensional reality and learn how to navigate it in a whole new way and learn how to exist in the 5D in this new, fun, exciting, joyful way. And as we do it and play with it, we start to realize like how good it gets, how amazing, how wonderful it can be. And then from there, we're just, like I said, at another starting point, because from 5D, we still keep our bodies. Remember, this 5D is not outside of us. It's not like we're going somewhere. We change from within. The internal experience by recognizing 4D is within us as well. And then, so as we change that, now we can reach into even higher realms. So for example, the sixth dimensional reality is where we typically have experiences with angels and angel gods and other really benevolent beings who are non-physical. Now they can easily dip into 4D. They come into 4D all the time, which is why everyday people can talk to angels. And yes, our loved ones, they move through 4D, but they typically, many of our loved ones who have crossed over exist at least sometimes in a sixth or seventh dimensional realm, so we can interact with them. That includes animals, by the way. So it's really fun to play ascended masters, for example, like Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, all of these ascended masters and so many others, they still exist alive and well. Typically, they're in a sixth or seventh dimensional existence, so we can connect with them there. And yes, they can still pop down into 4D, which is why everyday people can talk to Jesus. It's true. Jesus is not exclusive to anyone. If someone wants to talk to Jesus or interact, they can easily access him. But he tends to live more on a sixth, seventh dimensional existence, and other ascended masters like him. So that's another fun thing, that we get to have those interactions. For example, like this is when I say I'm a channeler. I can channel ascended masters and I can extract information from those dimensions and bring it into the physical world so that we can benefit, so we can learn from them. And we all have that ability, but we're just beginning to learn how. Make sense?
Oh, yeah. So is there like 99 dimensions out there, or is that also something that can't be measured?
Yeah, I think it's infinite, but I don't know that there are infinite dimensions. There are infinite dimensions, absolutely. I just don't know all of the infinite dimensions, because obviously I'm in my own human consciousness, and my consciousness is limited to what I can access. But I myself am easily able to access at least 13 dimensions of consciousness that I'm consciously aware of. But I know that there's way more. There's infinite, right? Infinite.
So have you accessed the 13th dimension on a Friday the 13th out of curiosity?
Oh, you're funny. Well, to me, when I'm accessing a 13th dimensional consciousness, what I'm aware of is what I would call oneness with the divine, absolute oneness with the divine. And I'm so far outside of the limitations of what consciousness, what the mental mind can perceive. So I'm so at one with the divine source, which is all that there is. Really, it is all that is. We are all it. We are all it. We're just in our own individualized bodies, having individualized experiences, not really fully realizing that we are it. We are that divine source. And if you want to use the word God, that's fine, whatever word that someone would use to define all that is. But it can never be so limited to a word. It's infinite love, infinite peace, infinite consciousness, infinite joy, infinite presence. That, to me, when I'm in a 13th dimension, and even if you just, even right now, we're a little bit tuning in on some level to it, because it's here now, conscious, with us, of us, as us, in us, around us. It is all that is. And that frequency is just so peaceful and so full of love.
That's right. Giant hearts everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for me, I would call that a 13th dimensional existence. And I mean, you can be there, but the thing is if you want to participate in physical earth, the moment you start kind of moving around in your body and actively engaging in like anything you're going to do, you're now not in 13th dimensional existence anymore, because, well, you're in a fifth. If you're holding that frequency, you're in a fifth dimension, because you have physical body, and you're, moving about doing the things of life. Right?
Oh, yeah. That's right. Maybe even high five yourself and decide to go to the 13th dimension, right?
Yeah, well, I think the 13th dimension, from my perspective, is sometimes for people who hear that, it's not like, I think it's it's a frequency match. So when you say frequency match, it's a vibratory state that you have to be able to sort of embody, but it can be learned through practice and application. It's not just something, you'd never be really just in your left analytical brain, like, oh yeah, let's just, get into the 13th dimension. No, it's not a left analytical brain thing. It's a whole body embodiment of the energetic frequency, that vibratory state of being that is what I would say in harmony with the 13th dimensional state of consciousness, which is the divine source, aspect of the divine source.
So put the brain down and let the vibrations amp up.
That's
All
right.
right.
That's right. The brain is still involved because there's knowing, and you're so aware. So aware. This is why meditation is so valuable, because meditation and breath work are the primary tools that ultimately will allow you, or for lack of a better word, allow you will help you to get to that state. That's why people meditate. And that's why people learn breath work, because those are the tools that shift you into those frequencies. I hope that's helpful. Hope that helps explain.
Oh yeah, it definitely does help to explain it because meditation and it's getting more popular nowadays, probably for a reason for the times that we're in. It's like not just
Yes.
the coping or tool for your health, but also a tool for connecting with the divine and beyond. And it's
Yes.
really a great thing that we have that ability and that it's coming to the forefront bit by bit.
Yes. And I would say that is because of light workers. Light workers have been doing so much work with the non-physical realm to really bring it into the physical realm. And this has been going on with increasing intensity since the 60s. I mean, this started with John Lennon and Woodstock and even JFK and MLK. They were really the forerunners, kind of like bringing this in, and they were starting to talk about it. Like you saw like the Beatles and John Lennon and Yoko Ono meditating, and the people at Woodstock getting into psychedelics, and they were expanding their consciousness, and MLK talking about freedom and peaceful standing up for what's right. This was what that was about. That was the birth, the earliest sign of this being birthed. But now, since that's been going on since the early 60s, really, humanity is now starting to realize, like, yeah, there's something to all of this. So you have these people who are just still very 3D, starting to realize that meditation and breath work will help relieve anxiety and stress. And then they get a little more into it and they start realizing, wow, it helps them work better and accomplish more. And then they start getting into it even more and they're like, wow, I'm getting all these great ideas. And like people are starting to realize how it helps in all areas of life. Yeah. Okay. Those are the early stages. And then you get even deeper into it and you're like, wow, I can heal people. I can heal myself of my issues. I can heal my animals. Well, then you get even more deeper and you're like, wow, I can heal not just myself and others and my animals, but I actually have gifts that will help heal humanity. I can help humanity. And then more and more people start getting together and we're like, wow, we have solutions for humanity that are going to heal the whole planet. You see, the deeper you go, the more access you have, the more you use it for the greater good, the greater the gifts get. It's incredible, Dom.
Oh yeah, the greater gift indeed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like sharing an evil laugh with your best friend when you reconnect with them.
Yeah, it is. It's just incredible what we can do and what we have capacity for. This is why it's so untapped. This is why it's just the beginning. I mean, it's just the start. It's just so exciting. It's really exciting for humanity. That's why I say it's when going back to your early question, how good can it get? How many O's? Infinitely good. We're just starting. So exciting.
That's right. Exciting indeed. Exciting indeed.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of exciting, a year that a lot of folks consider exciting, but it doesn't have to stop there. If you'd wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again in the current year of 2019 with all of your mass knowledge, experience, and dimension travels, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh my God, I love this question so much, Tom. And I wish. Okay, I don't want to say that because I don't mean to wish, but I wish I did give this to myself. Like 20 years ago, I wish I got it. And this is the advice I would give. Stop trying so hard. Have more fun. Relax, enjoy, and trust. be so conscious that the greatest thing you can do on planet Earth is be happy and follow your greatest joy and happiness, and lovingly and peacefully release and set free anyone and everything that has ever hurt you or harmed you. Just lovingly and peacefully release them, set them free, and move forward joyfully and happily and lovingly in the direction that brings you the most joy, with harm to none, while always being of service and contribution to the greater good, including your own self, of course. That's what I would tell myself. Which that is now what I do. And it is so the answer. That's what I do. That's how I live my life.
Hooray! I love it. Heck, with even infinite love. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. Yes, ma'am. Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And she's keeping it fabulous, too. That's what I'm talking about.
I hope so. I'm trying. I mean, not trying. I'm really not. That's the thing. Trying is just a waste of time. Doing is totally valuable. Like, do what you love. That's what I'm saying. Just do what you love. Do what you love. Systematically look at your life and eliminate everything from your life that you possibly can, little by little, that you don't love. And I'm not talking about, there are things you do have to do. You do have to be in your integrity and pay your bills. If you spend money on a credit card, yes, you have to pay it. Okay, I'm not talking about not doing things that are aligned with your highest and best. You do have to floss your teeth and brush your teeth. I mean, if you don't love flossing your teeth, you still do it, because that's an act of self-care and self-love. And that's an act of paying your bills on time is an act of integrity. You know, honoring your agreements. Sometimes you don't always love it. Yes, you still do that. But what I'm saying is, to the best of your ability, eliminate the things that you don't absolutely love and enjoy and that are not necessarily for your highest and best, and move confidently, happily, and joyfully in the direction of what you love. It is a recipe for success in all areas of life, and always doing it with harm to none, including yourself. And wow, if all of humanity lived that way, we would be in really great shape. So.
That's right. Humanity would have an 8-pack at that point.
Well, that is where we're all going. I'm telling you, because once people discover this recipe for success in all areas of life, it's amazing. It's almost that simple. Little by little, breath by breath, this is a recipe for success.
Oh, yeah. I am a fan of success cakes.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, not just success in career, but like success with health, happiness, love, joy, all of it. That's what I mean when I use the word success. Success is the quality of life that you're experiencing. And to me, that is the recipe at its most basic. So yeah, that's the advice I would give to myself.
Oh, yeah. Good advice indeed. That's right. Leave me all polished like a new pair of shoes.
Yeah, all polished.
Woo!
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the folks who want to keep in magical contact with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, well, first they can go over to my website, which is my name. It's LoriSpagna.com, LoriSpagna.com. And when they head over there, they'll be able to get some amazing, wonderful classes on like developing their intuitive gifts, their empathic gifts, their ability to communicate telepathically with animals. There's also a whole gift on the DNA, and we didn't talk as much about that, but activating their dormant DNA. And there's a meditation in there, and an ebook, and an activation, and a class. And there's also a free class they'll get on learning about light workers and star seeds, all about that. So all of that's at lorispagna.com when they join the community. In fact, they can even go lorispagna.com/free gifts/DNA, and they'll get the DNA gifts. They can go to lorispagna.com/free gifts/animals, and they'll get the stuff for the animals. And then if they go to lorispagna.com/free gifts/starseed, they'll get the other stuff on the, lightworker starseed stuff. So I know I said that fast, but you can always listen and replay. If they're not sure, they can also go to YouTube and just search my name, Lori Spagna. There's tons of amazing and wonderful gifts there and YouTube videos that talk more about this stuff. So that's how they can get more of me and everything I offer.
Oh, yeah. And the beautiful thing about it is you're still cooking all sorts of wonderful goodness. Every day a new video goes live almost.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Almost at least a couple times a week, a new video goes live. So if they like videos, that's a great place to learn. And I try to keep stuff constantly current there. So yeah. And I also just want to thank you so much, Dom, for having me. You've been really so fun, and you just really let me share so much. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity, because I do feel like every time we get to share these truths, through platforms like yours, where we get to speak openly and freely, that's an opportunity where everybody gets to learn and also use their own discernment to develop their own inner knowing and learning about what's right. And I feel like this is where we get to share and learn, because it's like you and I were saying before the show started, we're not learning this stuff in schools. They don't teach it in school. And we're definitely not learning this stuff in mainstream media on the regular news or, mainstream TV. That stuff is all censored. So, a show like yours, this podcast has given me an opportunity to be of service and to teach and share in an open forum. And for everyone who's listening, they get an opportunity to expand and learn and grow beyond what's offered in the mainstream. So thank you so much for having me, Dom, and thank you for making it available. And thank you for 2 years of doing it. That is a great service, tremendous service. So yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. It's great having you on. Great having you on. Get to find some light worker goddesses around the globe and bring them on. It's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So any parting words for the folks still listening?
Just thank you so much to everybody to all the light workers, because I know my tribe and my community, we are healers, we are intuitives, we are empaths, we are sensitives, and we are growing stronger and stronger. And we are united. And we are the solution on planet Earth. We are the answer that we've all been waiting for. And we are continuing to get stronger and stronger. And the future of our human species is good. The future of our Earth is good. And we knew 15 years ago that change doesn't come from the top or from the bottom. It comes from within. And I'm honor each and every one of us. I honor all of us. And I'm just grateful to be part of the tribe. So that's my parting words.
Hey there, buddy. Looks like you made it to the end of this episode. Since you made it to the end of this episode, do both of us a favor and stop being greedy. Stop it right now and share this episode with your friends and your fellow podcast lovers.